I've worked as a school janitor for over 20 years. It's not glamorous, and nobody notices you unless something's broken or smells like mildew. But you hear things. You see things. Especially if you've been around long enough. The school where I work, Maple Valley High, opened in 1979. It's an old brick building in a town too small for most maps, with rusting lockers and flickering hallway lights that take forever to warm up in winter. We've got about 400 students now, but back in the 80s, this place used to be packed. Class photos line the main hallway, all the way back to the first graduating class. That's how it started, with the photos. One night this past winter, I was up on a ladder fixing a light near the senior hallway. Below me, the wall was lined with framed portraits of classes from years past. I've walked past them 1,000 times. But something made me look closer. The second class to graduate from Maple Valley. 30 students in that photo. All smiling, some awkwardly. Girls with feathered hair, boys in wide collars and bad ties. Except one girl near the middle looked wrong. Not in a scary way. Just different. Her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Her posture was tense. She wore a green turtleneck, and her nameplate read, Hannah Breyer. That name meant nothing to me at the time. But it would soon. A week later, I was cleaning out old lockers on the east side. The ones that hadn't been assigned in years. We were remodeling, installing new vents. I had a list of lockers to strip and clear out. Most of them were empty or had crumpled paper and gum wrappers. Until locker 389. The door wouldn't open at first. Something jammed in the mechanism. I had to pry it gently with a flathead. When it finally popped open, a folded piece of lined notebook paper fluttered to the ground. I almost didn't pick it up. Figured it was just another doodle or forgotten math sheet. But the handwriting stopped me. It was neat, clean, almost too neat. And at the top, in blocky capital letters, it said, "If you find this, please tell my dad I'm sorry. HB." I stared at it for a while. Then I turned it over. There was a second message, smaller, shakier. He told me to meet him in the boiler room. I shouldn't have gone. I sat in my car for a long time after my shift that night. HB, Hannah Breyer? I looked her up. Not much came up online. No social media, of course. No local articles. Nothing under her name in the town archives. But when I asked one of the older teachers, Mrs. Edmonds, she taught English here back in the 80s, her face changed instantly. She lowered her voice and said, "You didn't hear this from me, but that girl? She vanished. 1982. Right after homecoming. Vanished?" She nodded. Walked out of class one Friday and never came back. Her best friend said she was going to meet someone before rehearsal. No one saw her after that. I asked if they searched. They searched everything. Classrooms, parking lots, woods. The police combed the school for days. No signs of her. Eventually the story just disappeared. People moved on. Her parents left town, got divorced, and we stopped talking about it. I took the note home and locked it in a drawer. But something was off. Not just about the note, but the way Mrs. Edmonds had said they stopped talking about it. Like it was a rule. Like remembering Hannah Breyer had consequences. That night, I dreamed of the school. Empty, flickering lights, water dripping somewhere deep, and the sound of something metallic being dragged slowly across tile. When I woke up, my hallway light was on, even though I always turn it off before bed. And on the floor outside my bedroom door was a single sheet of lined notebook paper. It was blank, except for one phrase, scrawled diagonally across the center in the same handwriting. "You found it. He knows." I didn't go into work the next day. I told the head custodian I was feeling sick, which wasn't a total lie. I couldn't stop shaking. My hallway light, the one that turned on by itself, stayed on for hours. I unplugged the lamp entirely. The bulb still flickered once before dying. I took the second note, the one that appeared outside my door, to a friend of mine named Thomas, who works in archival restoration. He ran a UV scan, hoping to reveal any faded ink or pressure marks. We found two things. First, on the back of the paper, almost invisible under normal light, was a faint outline of a handprint. Small, like a teenage girl's, fingers splayed wide, no smudges, just the pressure, perfectly preserved. Second, below the phrase "you found it," he knows, There was a second line, written at a different angle, almost buried in the fibers. Locker 389 isn't the only one. I went back to the school after hours. Used my own keys. I started checking lockers. One by one. There were nearly 200 unused lockers in the east and north wings. I didn't find anything until number 412. Near the back exit, under the old staircase that leads down to the boiler hallway. Inside, taped to the back wall with yellowed masking tape, was another note. This one was brittle with age, the ink smudged but still readable. He wears the janitor's uniform, but he's not with the staff. I froze. The hallway behind me was dead silent. The air was thick with that strange pressure again, like walking into a room where someone had just stopped talking. I shut the locker. Didn't sleep that night either. By now, I was obsessed. I started digging into old employment records. The county was slow with digitalization, but I found a printed roster from 1982 in the library's archive. The list of faculty, coaches, and custodial staff. No mention of any Hannah Breyer. And no janitor listed between the names of Ken Holloway, my old boss, and Richard Burnell. Just a blank line. I ran my finger across it. The paper felt smooth, except right there. Like something had been erased. Burned out. Scraped down to the grain. I checked the yearbook. The 1982 yearbook had a thank you to staff page. All the teachers were listed. All the lunch ladies. The football coach. Even the bus driver. But no custodian. No janitor. Not one. I flipped to the back of the yearbook, past the senior photos. That's when I noticed something. A photo of a hallway. Probably included to fill space. But if you looked closely, standing at the very edge of the frame, behind a row of lockers, was a man. Only half visible, wearing what looked like a gray uniform, head turned slightly toward the camera. But where his face should have been, the image warped. Blurred, like a smudge across the negative. I took the yearbook and the notes to Warren Fry. Yeah, the same Warren I mentioned in the story about Rachel Dunning. He'd been sheriff back in the 80s. He knew Strange better than most people wanted to admit. I didn't even finish explaining before he said, "You're not the first person to bring this girl up." "What do you mean?" "In '96, we got a call from a substitute teacher. Said one of her students found a note taped to the underside of their desk. And it was signed HB. He took a sip from his chipped mug. It said, I went to meet him. It's not a room, it's a mouth. I said nothing, just sat there staring at the wood grain of his table. You want my advice? He said, don't go looking for her. I already am. Then you better understand this, you're not looking through time. You're looking across it. I went back to school. Not to clean, not to work. I went into the boiler hallway. It's the only part of the building that still has the original tile from the 1970s, yellowish, cracked in places. With faded arrows painted on the floor that no one follows anymore. At the end of the hallway, there's a door. The one no students ever allowed to open. It leads to the old furnace pit, where they used to burn trash before the county upgraded the system. That part's been sealed for years. But I still have a key. When I opened it, a rush of cold air hit me in the face. Not musty, not stale, cold, like winter. Below the staircase, in the center of the floor, was something new. A locker. Freestanding, not attached to anything. Old, rusted, painted green, same shade as Hannah's turtleneck. No number, just one piece of tape. Across the front, a handwritten message in black marker. Tell my dad I'm sorry. I reached out to touch the handle. My fingers stopped an inch from the metal. Because from inside, I heard a sound. Not scratching, not banging, not breathing. A pencil. Writing. Something being written slowly, carefully, on paper. Then it stopped. I backed away. Left the door open. Locked the school behind me. I haven't been back since. But the note appeared again. This time, in my mailbox. Folded neatly. Sealed in a plastic lunch bag like someone had protected it for years. Same handwriting. Same voice. It's not the lockers. It's the space between them. He waits in the silences. The bell rings, but no one leaves. On the back, one final message. You saw me once. 1982. You just didn't know it was me. The handwriting was identical. Every curve of every letter. Like it had been written yesterday, not decades ago. You saw me once. 1982. But I didn't. I couldn't have. I wasn't even working at the school then. Was I? I started digging into school district records again, this time pulling staff photos from every maintenance and janitorial team since the late 70s. Some were group shots in front of boilers or on rooftops fixing fans. Most were normal, boring, grainy black and white photocopies or Polaroids. But in the 1982 file, there was no photo. Only a note. Photo unavailable due to exposure damage. See appendix for incident report. No appendix attached. No report. Just a gap. Another empty space. Like something was supposed to be there but had been removed long ago. Not erased. Just hidden where it wouldn't draw questions. I remembered what Warren had said. You're not looking through time. You're looking across it. I didn't know what that meant. Not really. But I was starting to understand what it felt like. It felt like forgetting something you never knew. Like déjà vu tied in a knot. The next day, I got a call from Thomas, the guy who helped me with the UV scan. He'd gone through the note again, out of curiosity. Did you know there's faint writing on the inside of the fold? He said. I hadn't noticed. He sent a scan. Inside, written so faintly it looked like part of the paper fibers, were 4 words. Locker 000, Basement West. There was no Basement West. Not on the blueprints. Not on any school map. But I remembered something strange. Years ago, while chasing a mouse problem, I'd opened a panel in the far end of the art storage room. Behind it was a cinder block wall with a single steel hatch, completely painted over. I assumed it was an old coal chute, maybe even sealed off from a previous building. Never thought about it again. Until now. That night I brought tools. Flashlight, bolt cutter, tape recorder, and the bracelet. Yes, the bracelet. The one from the Rachel Dunning case. It had appeared again, inexplicably, on the dashboard of my truck that morning. I didn't know what it had to do with Hannah. But somehow, I knew I should take it with me. I pried open the art room panel and scraped away the paint on the hatch. Rust flaked off in clouds. The bolts groaned like something waking up after a long, dreamless sleep. When I finally pulled it open, I was hit with a wall of cold air. It smelled like old water and old metal. I stepped inside. The staircase was steep, narrow, and uneven. Not built for safety. Not built for people, honestly. The walls were unfinished concrete. My flashlight caught the outlines of wiring that had been cut and recut over the years. Useless now. At the bottom, the air was heavier, thicker, and the silence, it wasn't natural. It wasn't just quiet, it was pressure, like being underwater. Ahead of me was a narrow corridor, maybe 4 feet wide, ceiling barely above my head. No doors, no markings, until the end. Locker 000, freestanding, dead center of the last chamber. Painted white, too clean, like it had been repainted recently, or never touched at all. I reached for the handle. Froze. There were voices behind the metal. Not screaming, not talking, just echoes. Familiar ones. Children laughing, feet running on tile. The electric hum of a class projector from the 80s. And over all of it, a voice I recognized. Hannah. Soft, frantic, like she was whispering into a microphone that wasn't quite working. He locked the door. He said I'd be back soon. He said no one would even know I was gone. The locker door opened by itself. Inside was a mirror. No books, no coat hook, no shelves, just a smooth, perfect mirror. But when I looked in, I didn't see myself. I saw her, Hannah, standing in a school hallway that no longer existed. One of the old hallways with orange lockers and gums stuck to the floor tiles. She was barefoot, crying. She looked right at me. And behind her, I saw him. A man in a janitor's uniform. His face, completely blank. No features, just a smudge, like the yearbook photo. He raised a hand, pointed at me, and said, in a voice that made the mirror vibrate, "You were never supposed to open this." I blinked, and I was alone. Locker empty. Mirror gone, just a blank steel interior. Except for one thing taped to the back wall. A small, square photo. It was a school hallway. And in the distance, barely visible, 2 figures. A girl in a green turtleneck. And a janitor. Not him. Me. I didn't tell anyone about what I saw in the mirror. Not Thomas. Not Warren. Not even myself, if we're being honest. I pretended it hadn't happened. I went back to work. Cleaned the gym bleachers. Replaced a light in the chemistry lab. Helped the principal pull a dead raccoon out of a vent behind the auditorium. But every hallway I walked down felt different. Every locker door sounded louder when it closed. The light above locker 389 flickered constantly now, even with a brand new bulb. I replaced it 5 times in 3 weeks. Same result. One morning, I found the locker door open. It had been locked the night before. Inside, a spiral notebook. Green cover. Worn edges. Nothing written on the front. Just a sticker of a sunflower, faded and peeling. I flipped it open. It was Hannah's. The handwriting matched the other notes. It started out normal, like a teenage diary. Today Jen said Mr. K has a crush on Mrs. Hollins. Ew. Also, I hate algebra. I hate Mr. Hobbs. I think he smells like pickles. Then, had a dream again. The one where I opened my locker and it's a hallway. Not a hallway I know. It leads into black, and there's that janitor again. I think his name is Alan. But I've never met an Alan. He keeps asking if I have my pass. I don't know what that means. Then, Jen says I'm acting weird. But I saw someone in the stairwell again. No face, just a shape. I thought I was losing it, but I heard the projector turn on in room B104. That room's locked. It's been locked for years. Then, he said the fairground girl brought him back. Who is the fairground girl? He keeps saying, she opened the loop. Now someone has to stay. That page was torn. I took the notebook home. Laid it out on the table beside the bracelet. The Rachel Dunning bracelet, still sitting there like it belonged. I opened Rachel's case file again. One sentence stood out. I hadn't noticed it before. Reported by teacher on duty, child claimed Rachel waved at her through the gym window, 2 days after disappearance. And then, claimed she was accompanied by a girl in green. Hannah, that can't be a coincidence. I went to the gym the next morning before school. The window mentioned in the report looked out into the rear courtyard. Nothing unusual there, just some weeds, a few benches, broken sprinkler head. Until I stepped closer, there was something carved into the inside of the windowsill. Scratched deep into the wood with something sharp. I'm not her. I touched it, and the glass hummed. A high-frequency tone, like feedback. Only for a second, then silence. I met with Warren again. Showed him the notebook. He didn't touch it, just stared. Fairground girl, he muttered. She's not just a one-off. I asked him what he meant. There's been others. We never connected them. Or maybe we did, and we forgot. That's the part one still can't figure out. He pulled out a box from his filing cabinet. Inside, old maps of the town. From the 50s, 60s, 70s. One of them showed the original foundation of the Maple Valley School building, before the expansions. I traced the layout. 2 wings. 1 gym. No art room. No storage hallway. No locker 389. Wasn't even built yet, Warren said. But that locker's been there longer than I've been alive. I remember it being marked, out of use, when I was in 8th grade. Wait, you went to Maple Valley? Everyone in this town did, back then. He lit a cigarette. And you want to know the part I've never said out loud? I nodded. I don't remember graduating. I remember senior year. I remember prom. But I don't remember leaving. That night I got a message. Slipped under my windshield wiper. Typed. Again. Neat. Same font as the locker note. Alan is not a name. It's a position. There is always an Alan. Until the bell rings and no one leaves. I went back to locker 000. It was gone. The hallway behind the boiler room was sealed with concrete. Not boarded, not bricked, poured, solid, clean, like no one had ever touched it. Like it had never been opened. Except I could still hear it. From behind the wall, that sound, a pencil, scratching, writing something down, again, and again, and again. In the teacher's lounge the next day, I overheard something. One of the new subs, Ms. Carroll, said her class had found a name carved under a desk. A name they didn't recognize. Not a student, Rachel Dunning, and just below it, a note. In perfect handwriting. Ask the janitor. She thought it was a prank. I didn't. I stopped pretending I didn't know what was happening. The school was breathing, softly. Slowly, like it had a rhythm of its own. Every hallway had a pulse, every creak in the walls wasn't decay. It was memory, trying to push through. I started keeping a notebook of my own, documenting where I found notes, when the lights flickered, who mentioned strange dreams. The janitor's closet near the science wing smelled like chalk even though we hadn't used real chalkboards in 15 years. Locker 389 opened and closed on its own schedule. Room B104, locked since the early 90s. Had scuff marks on the inside of the door, like someone was pacing. I went back to Rachel's case file again, and this time I focused on the details that seemed irrelevant at first. A student named Emily Carr said she saw a girl in green standing by the faculty mailboxes the Monday after Rachel disappeared. The school dismissed it, said it was trauma, confusion, a friend projecting grief. But Emily died 2 years later in a car accident, driving alone, no drugs, no alcohol. The police report said she was mumbling something when paramedics arrived. Don't go in the locker. He's still writing, he's always writing, he's still writing. That wasn't in any official file. I found it scribbled in a margin of a notebook in the storage room labeled Incident Notes 1983. I shouldn't have had access to it. That room wasn't supposed to exist. But the key I used, the one I'd found taped under the old gym bench last summer, fit perfectly. And inside that room was a photograph. Black and white, a hallway, long and empty. And at the very end, just before the door marked janitorial storage, was a figure. Blurry. Male. No face. Wearing a uniform. Hand outstretched toward a girl in a green turtleneck. I scanned it and zoomed in. There was a date scratched into the corner, 1982. But the girl, she was holding something in her hand. A bracelet. Rachel's bracelet. It wasn't possible. It didn't make sense. But I felt it in my gut. This wasn't a timeline. This was a knot. Everything twisting in on itself. Rachel and Hannah. The lockers. The hallways. The blank faces. The janitor that never showed up on staff lists but always stood at the edge of every yearbook photo like a ghost waiting for his shift. And then I found my own name. On a list of substitute custodians from 1991. I was 11 years old in 1991. But the signature matched mine. The handwriting, mine. And scrawled next to my name in red pencil. He saw too much, assigned 389. My hands shook. I went home. I locked the door. I turned off every light. But the mirror in the bathroom stayed fogged. I hadn't used the shower. I wiped it with my sleeve and there was a word on the glass. One I hadn't seen before. Again, that's when I remembered, this wasn't the first time I'd found the note in the locker. This wasn't the first time I'd seen Rachel's name. This wasn't the first time I dreamed of a hallway with no end. This was just the first time I chose to remember. 2 days later, the new tech guy, Kevin, came up to me while I was rewiring a hallway sensor and said, totally casual, like he was talking about the weather, "Hey, does this place feel off to you?" I didn't answer right away. He leaned against the wall and said, like, not haunted. Just stuck, like nothing moves forward here. Yesterday I stepped outside for a smoke, came back 5 minutes later, and the cafeteria clock was exactly an hour behind. No one touched it. No power outage. Just reset. I told him the building had old wiring, that weird stuff happens sometimes. He just looked at me and said, I saw a girl in a green sweater behind the dumpsters. She was staring through the gym window. And when I looked again, she was gone. Like, not walked off, gone. Then he asked, how long have you been working here? I told him too long. He nodded slowly, then said, have you ever actually left this place? And walked away. That same afternoon I checked the security footage, not because I expected anything, but because something told me to. Every recording between 10:42 and 11:03 that day was corrupted. File labeled 1982 archive.mkv showed 0 bytes. 1994 doorview.mov failed to open. 2008-stairsfeed.mp4 was a black screen. But when I boosted contrast on that last one, a figure appeared in the frame, faint. Blurry. Standing at the base of the stairwell. Same janitor shape. No face. Opposite him, smaller, a girl in a green sweater. Holding something in her hand. A folded piece of paper. Just like the first note I found. I printed the still frame and stared at it for a long time. I didn't show anyone. I didn't need confirmation. I already knew. Something was circling. Something that didn't forget. Something that didn't let you forget, even if you tried. I went back to the records room, deep in the basement. The one where they used to store broken desks and outdated science equipment. The air was dense like it had its own weight. I pushed aside an old filing cabinet and found a narrow gap behind it, enough to slip through. There was a door I'd never seen before. Unpainted. Scratched. No knob. Just a metal plaque with the number 000. I placed my palm on it. Cold. And then I heard it. Behind the door. Writing. Soft, fast, repeating. A pencil dragging across paper. Over and over. Then a voice. Not loud. Not near. Just present. Like a thought spoken just outside the edge of my hearing. If you're reading this, you're already inside. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the floor with the still frame from the security tape in one hand and the green notebook in the other. I flipped through the last pages again. Most of them were blank. But when I held the pages near a heat vent, something started to show, heat-sensitive ink. Faded, but there. A few words. Same handwriting. He's in every hallway. Not at the same time. But always. They made a deal. One stays. One disappears. It's not possession. It's substitution. And one final line, in the center of a blank page, almost childlike. I wasn't supposed to be me. The next morning, I walked the hallways alone. No students yet. No teachers. Just me and the lights buzzing above. I passed locker 389, the one that started it all, and the door was open again. Inside, nothing. But the back wall was cracked now. The metal peeled slightly around the edges, as if something had pushed outward. I reached inside and felt something shift. Not like an object. Like air. Moving in a way that didn't make sense. I pulled my hand back. Cold. Wet. Like fog trapped in a steel box. In the library, I checked the oldest yearbooks again. 1982, 1983, 1984. I started counting how many students were listed as not pictured. Too many. Way too many. And none of them had any recorded graduation date. Just names. No faces. No clubs. No sports. Some of those names, I recognized. One was on the list I found under the staircase weeks ago. Another, scribbled on the back of Rachel's missing poster. The last one, written on a desk in the science lab, underneath a layer of laminated graffiti, in ink that hadn't faded at all. Please switch with me. That was the moment I realized this wasn't about Rachel. Or Hannah. Or even the janitor. This was about the place. The school wasn't haunted. It was hungry. And it didn't want revenge. It wanted balance. I found the list again. The one scratched into the back of the janitor's closet door with a box cutter. Names, maybe 20 of them, most half-faded, most familiar now. Some matched yearbooks. Some matched police reports. But one didn't. The last one. Still sharp. Still fresh. Like it had been carved yesterday. My name. I traced it with my finger. The metal still curled up slightly around the letters. Real. Physical. Not a dream. Not a metaphor. I was on the list. Not added. Placed. I didn't write it. But the handwriting was mine. The next morning, Kevin didn't show up. No one noticed. Not right away. But his tools were still on the cart in the south stairwell. His jacket was still on the hook in the boiler hallway. I checked the time clock. He'd punched in at 6:31 a.m. There was no punch out. I checked the cameras. Every feed between 6:30 and 7:00 was corrupted again. Static. Glitches. At one point the timestamp loops from 6:47 to 6:47 6 times. I boosted the frames manually, frame by frame. And there he was. Kevin. Walking past locker 389. And behind him, someone else. Same uniform. Same gait. Same height. But no face. Kevin turned, like he heard something. And then he was gone. One frame later, nothing. Just the hallway. And an open locker. I went back there that night. Alone. The concrete wall was still sealed. But someone had left a note on the floor in front of it. Folded 4 times. No dust on it, like it had been just placed. I opened it. Same handwriting. You can't take him back. The exchange is already made. You only get one. Tell Rachel she broke the loop. Tell Hannah she never should have looked. Tell yourself. The note stopped mid-sentence. The bottom half of the paper was blank. Until I turned it over. Written in red, shaky ink. Tell yourself to forget, but I can't. And now I'm not sure I ever could. Because last night, I dreamed of a classroom. B104. The one that's been sealed since the fire in 1997. In the dream, it wasn't burnt. It was pristine, clean, and filled with students I recognized from yearbooks, from missing persons flyers, from memory. And in the front row, smiling, notebook open, was me. Not older, not current, me, younger, 16, maybe. And I was writing something. The words echoed in the room even though no one else moved. I wasn't supposed to be me. And then the bell rang. But no one stood up. No one left. And the door wouldn't open. Just ticking, like a clock with no hands. And someone whispered behind me, "Class isn't over yet." I started skipping sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I was back in room B104. Same students, same ticking clock, same notebook in my hands with words I don't remember writing. I began seeing them in the halls, not students, not ghosts, just moments. Glitches. A girl turning the corner in a green sweater who vanished before her footsteps faded. A boy sitting alone in the library reading a newspaper from 1985 that turned blank when I touched it. Rachel in the gym window, not waving, just watching. Hannah under the stairwell, mouthing something silently, eyes wide like glass. Kevin's toolbox reappeared under the sink in the boys' restroom, but the wrenches were reversed. Every left-hand grip switched for right. I opened locker 389 again. It was deeper than before. I could see metal on metal stretching into darkness like it was growing inside the wall. I reached in and pulled out a cassette tape labeled, Subject, JAN 82. I didn't have a player, but the AV room had one locked in a drawer. I jimmied it open with a screwdriver. Hit play. Silence for 30 seconds. Then static. Then her voice. Not Hannah. Not Rachel. Mine. Breathing. And then, test 3. Trying again. I saw him today. Same eyes. Same walk. He doesn't know yet. I'm still in the loop. I'm still inside. Then laughter. Not cruel. Just tired. Like someone trying to remember the joke at the end of a bad dream. The tape clicked. Rewound itself. I threw it against the wall and it cracked into 2 pieces, but there was no tape inside. Just an empty reel. That night, I wrote my name on a piece of paper and left it in locker 389. In the morning, it was gone. Replaced with a Polaroid of me standing in room B104, smiling, holding the green notebook. Behind me, the janitor. Not me, not quite, just off, and in red marker across the top border, "Don't turn around." I started making copies of everything. Notes, photos, floor plans, stills from the corrupted camera footage. I filled a binder, marked it personnel, incomplete. I labeled the notes by location, time found, ink type. But some of them didn't behave like paper. I know how that sounds. But I'd pull one out of a plastic sleeve and the words would be rearranged, like they were never written in one direction to begin with. I put one on my fridge door, and by morning it said something completely different. First it read, "They're listening through the intercoms." Then, the next day, same paper, same ink, "You are the intercom." I stopped bringing the notes home after that. The air in my apartment changed. It got flat, like the sound didn't echo right. I could snap my fingers and it wouldn't bounce. No depth. I ran a sound test with an app, pure silence. 0 room feedback. That shouldn't be possible in a lived-in apartment. The app glitched and displayed a waveform even when I wasn't talking. A waveform I recognized. The same pattern that played when I boosted the audio on the Rachel tape weeks ago. Same rhythm, same peaks. I recorded it and overlaid it, perfect match. 2 completely different tapes, same signal, same voice underneath the static. Not Hannah, not Rachel, not me, just something slow, deep, quiet, you remember wrong. I ran. I drove to the edge of town, parked in front of an abandoned middle school that had been shut since the 90s after a mold scare. I climbed through a broken window and walked the halls with a flashlight. There were still lesson plans on the chalkboards, names etched into desks. One said Mrs. Kramer smells like onions. Another just said Alan. That name again. It wasn't just our building. The walls here pulsed too. I stood in the empty principal's office and opened a drawer. Inside, a roster. Faded, stuck together, but one page stood out. Names, ages, dates of transfer. And one column labeled, exchanged. YN out of 50 names. 11 had I copied the list and compared it to the Maple Valley High Archive. 6 of the names were shared, same spelling, same date of birth. But the faces were different. Entirely different, like someone had changed out the person but kept the record. I printed 2 of the photos side by side and stared at them until my eyes ached. Same name, different people. I flipped the page and there was a handwritten note in red ink. Not everyone remembers they switched. And underneath, smaller, most don't. Until they're alone too long. I drove back in silence, heart thudding, palms sweating on the wheel. When I got home, my front door was ajar. Nothing was stolen. Nothing was moved. Except one thing, the binder. The entire binder was gone. And in its place, on my kitchen table, was a single sheet of paper. Torn from a spiral notebook. Same old ink. Same slanted handwriting. You were warned. And on the back, for the first time, something I'd never seen on any other note, a drawing. Crude. Just lines. But it was me, standing in front of a locker. Not 389. Not 000. A new one. Number blurred. And the door was open. Inside, another version of me. Same face. Same clothes. But the other me had no eyes. Just black, empty sockets. And his hands were held up against the inside of the door, like he was trying to keep the real me out. I didn't go back to the apartment after that. I slept in my truck, parked across the street from the school, engine off, windows down just enough to breathe. I kept waking up every 20 minutes, sometimes to nothing, sometimes to the school's lights turning on one by one like something was pacing the halls. At 2:37 a.m., all the second-floor hallway lights flickered twice. Then just one, the one above locker 389, stayed lit. I stared at it until sunrise. When I finally went back inside, the air smelled like burned paper. No sign of fire, no alarms, just the scent. And on the floor, in front of the custodial closet, was ash. I followed it down the hall. Tiny flakes, like a breadcrumb trail. It ended at room B104. Still locked. Still officially condemned since 1997. I tried the handle. It turned. The lights flickered on. The room was empty. Desks all cleared out. Blackboard clean. Not even a scrap of dust. But in the middle of the room, placed on the floor like it was waiting, was the binder. My binder. All the documents still inside. Except for one thing, the drawing. The one with me standing outside the locker, looking at myself. That page was gone. In its place was a new one. No drawing. Just words. Short. Typewritten this time, in bold caps, "You were inside longer than you remember." I stood there frozen. Then I noticed something else. Every corner of the room, taped to the walls, were printed screenshots. From security footage. Me, walking the halls. Me, unlocking lockers. Me, in the janitor's uniform. Except in one of them. I wasn't holding my flashlight. I was holding a set of old keys. Not mine. I zoomed in. One of the keys had a tag. Engraved in brass, "Property of Alan J., Maintenance." Another photo. Me standing by the faculty parking lot, same keys, staring straight into the camera. That footage never existed, but there it was, in my binder, taped to the inside cover like I'd put it there. I didn't remember doing it. But my handwriting was underneath, swap confirmed. That phrase again. Swap. Substitution. Exchange. I thought about the locker numbers. I thought about the door that disappeared, and the one that hadn't yet appeared. I thought about the girl in green, the bracelet, the smudged faces. And I thought, what if this place doesn't take people? What if it duplicates them? I went to the boiler hallway one last time. There's a part of the wall near the mop sink where the paint never fully dries. It always looks wet, always a slightly darker shade. I scraped it with my thumbnail. Beneath the paint, metal. Like locker steel. I kept scraping, and there it was. A number. Half buried under layers of paint and rust. Oh. Again. I pressed my ear to the wall. Heard nothing. Then I knocked. Once. Twice. 3 times. Knock. 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 And from the other side, the same 3 knocks. Exactly timed. Then a voice. Soft. Familiar. My voice. Let me out. I stepped back from the wall. Heart punching my ribs. I didn't knock again. I didn't move. Just stared at that painted over steel like it was breathing. It felt alive. Warm. The voice hadn't said much, but the tone, it wasn't begging. It was waiting. Like it knew I'd come back. Like it was just a matter of time. I turned and walked out, fast, not looking back, trying to shake the weight off my chest. But it followed me. The whole building felt like it was following me. Every footstep echoed twice. Every reflection was just half a second too late. Every shadow leaned toward me. I tried to go outside, just to breathe, to think, but the front door was locked. I didn't lock it. The side door? Locked too. The emergency exit behind the cafeteria? Jammed. And the windows? When I looked through them, it wasn't daylight. It was just more hallway. A hallway that shouldn't be outside. A hallway I didn't recognize. Blue lockers. No exit signs. No fire alarms. And the lights, humming, buzzing, red. Not white. Not yellow. Just that dull red glow that comes from somewhere deeper. I sat on the floor in front of the faculty lounge and opened the binder again, desperate for logic. For any piece of this puzzle that didn't feel like madness. There. A loose paper, tucked between two photos. I hadn't seen it before. Typed text. Incident protocol. Exchange case 11B. No date. No signature. Just rules. Rule 1. All substitutes must remain unaware. Rule 2. If recognition occurs, initiate inversion. Rule 3. No more than one copy active per unit. Rule 4. Alan must remain neutral. That last line stopped me. Alan. The name that kept showing up. I thought it was a person. A ghost. A warning. But what if it was a title? Or a job? Or worse, a designation? I flipped the page and found a checklist. Empty boxes. 13 in total. Each with a line beside it. All blank. Except one, the first one. Checked. Next to it, primary entered, September 1982. Next to it in red, Alan, assigned. I stared at the word. Alan, Alan, Alan. I whispered it out loud. And the lights above me flickered. All of them. Every hallway in the school. On, off, on, off. And then I heard the door unlatch. Not the front door. The one behind me. The lounge. It creaked open an inch, no more. Inside, darkness. I should have run. But I walked in. I had to. I had to know. The moment I crossed the threshold, the door slammed shut behind me and I was in another hallway. Long. Narrow. Steel. No windows. No signs. Just a single locker at the end. Number scratched off. And behind me, no door. No wall. No way back. Just more hallway. More silence. Except for one sound, footsteps. Mine. Doubled. As if someone else was walking with me, step for step. Same pace. Same weight. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. Because I already knew what I'd see. And I wasn't ready yet. Not until I reached that locker. Not until I opened it. Not until I looked inside and saw. The locker was cold. Not just metal cold, absence cold. Like it didn't belong in this world. I stood there, hand hovering over the handle. Breath stuck somewhere between my ribs and my throat. Behind me, the footsteps had stopped. Whatever was following me, whoever, it was waiting. The silence stretched. Heavy. Alive. I gripped the handle and pulled. Slowly. The door groaned open. Inside, a mirror. Again. Same as the first time. But this one wasn't like before. This one didn't show another hallway. Or Hannah. Or Rachel. This one showed a room. A small, square office. Walls the color of old tape. A desk. A chair. And someone sitting in that chair. Me. Not just my face. My posture. My hands. The way I tap my thumb against my thigh when I think. He looked up, met my eyes, and smiled. Not cruel. Not kind. Just understanding. Like he'd been waiting for this. Like he'd done it all before. He raised a hand and pointed behind me. I turned. And there it was. A second locker. Unmarked. Slightly open. Inside, not a mirror. Just darkness. I stepped closer and heard something. Not voices. Not static. A school bell. Faint. Ringing. Then, a click. Like a tape ending. Then, nothing. I opened my eyes. Back in my apartment. Binder on the table. Cassette player beside it. The tape inside was blank. Completely blank. The binder now had only one page left. Typed in the center. Did you leave? And underneath, handwritten in that familiar, slanted script. If you had to ask, you didn't.